Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the new Italian battleships in this Lunar New Year event, Nian's Paradox. Well, new, I say. These are copy-paste, of course, but opportunity to get yourself some premium Italian battleships without spending doubloons or other in-game resources like coal. Or you could trade coal for these tokens to get this ship. Yeah, Marco Polo is usually available for coal. Maybe you should get it there if you do miss out on this event. It really is just a camo for Marco Polo, is the Pilus Posterior here. We're going to shoot some AP, get the Citadel, which is nice to have, but should you shoot SAP more often? Probably. Although here, we're going to shatter everything. Generally with SAP and the way it goes is if you can reliably get a Citadel, or you should get a Citadel, go for the AP. Otherwise, just spam SAP until the armor of upper belts gets to be too much that the SAP can't get through. Then you want to go back to armor piercing again. Generally how it goes with these ships. 406 mil AP and SAP here, so it's a little bit larger caliber than what we see on the tech tree ships like Colombo as well as Lepanto. Those only get 381s. Although Tempesta Nera is currently available in this same event, and that has 457 millimeter SAP. If you're wondering which one I would get, I would just go for the Tempesta Nera. If you don't have any of these Italian battleships, I think it's a lot better than Marco Polo. Although here, you also do get Verdi, which is the Pilus Posterior, I guess. These copy-paste ships are interesting in that you have access to ships that are usually available for doubloons or coal by grinding these missions out. That is the key to this Nian's Paradox, is that, yeah, it's copy-paste ships. Some of the value here is just that you get to play the game, grind out these, I think, reasonable combat missions, and you can earn some of these premium ships or just special versions of tech tree ships, allowing us to copy our commanders over for free. We were taking a look at the Schlieffen and Petro when it came to that as well. A lot of good options here. This bundle, though, is rather expensive, I gotta say, for two mediocre, in my opinion, tier 9 battleships. 39,000 of these tokens gets you in the ballpark of that Laria clone, the Tempesta Nera. And I would much rather go for that. However, there are some good things about these two ships. I really like the tankiness overall of both the Marco Polo and the Verdi. They're a little high above water, but if you've never played some of these Italian battleships, like Roma, for example, they don't have a lot of superstructure, and their upper belt and deck armor is very well armored. If you keep them angled, they're not going to take much damage at all. Slightly lower HP pools than we would like to see out of tier 9 battleships here, but that tankiness is going to carry them through. The dispersion here is 1.9 sigma. Battleship dispersion here, at least on the Plius Posterior, which is the Marco Polo. The Verdi is a little bit more of a shotgun. We'll get to that one later, though. I want to focus more on this one with its main guns, at least to start with here. AP, since we have the possibility of citadeling this Umahari, and I want to try to take these engagements well angled. Every time that I give broadside in this ship, I end up getting absolutely smashed. It's not like we're playing some of the Soviet battleships where you can kind of get away with it sometimes, especially at higher tier. Here, it feels like you give broadside and you take massive hits. But when we angle, it seems to do just fine. These sap shells, by the way, can get through 102 millimeters of armor. So if you like cruisers actually have exposed citadels like that, I believe we can get through Minotaur, maybe even Edgar citadels at that point, where with standard sap, you're mainly looking for things like Smolensk or Colbert. So a few more that we can kind of mess around with there. Although even 1.9 sigma is not enough to save battleship's dispersion sometimes. Yes, we did actually miss that shot. Although we hit 2 shells. I should have been over on the sap there. I should have known he was angling. And in fact, he's low enough that who cares about getting citadels at this point? We really just need to guarantee that damage in. And that's what sap is. Sap is guaranteeing massive alpha damage. 14,100 alpha damage here. The AP is only at 13,050 alpha damage. So full pen to full pen, you're just getting better damage output from the sap. And the pen angles here, we already know sap is crazy. 70 to 80 degree pen angles means, yeah, 4 full pens, that's like nearly 16,000 alpha damage. Yeah, it's a Kearsarge, it's a large exposed superstructure there, but still, it's a very powerful ship in the right situation. Although, yeah, we're not looking so hot into this battle. Some key weaknesses outside of the giving broadside here is that we have essentially no anti-aircraft. Not many surface ships have very good AA, but in particular, these Italian ships are quite poor. Low range and very low damage output there. We'll get the Sansonetti Confed buff. That's going to help us out a lot with our main gun reload. It's a little slow feeling here, I won't lie. 34.5 seconds here on 9 406s. I mean, Iowa is a pretty solid baseline for tier 9 power, and that's 30 seconds. With reload mod, it does help a little bit, of course, but it still feels a little bit slow for a tier 9 battleship. But considering we have SAP as an ammo type, I suppose that does make sense. Overall, over 2 million potential damage into this one, as well as over 150k damage. I'll take it. I think we probably go down here, though, unfortunately. Marco Polo just does not have access to the smoke. That is another big downside here. We would be able to get out of some of these tricky situations by popping our smoke screen, getting to cover, that kind of thing. No luck here. Otherwise, I do think this is a much better ship than, say, Lepanto, like the Tech Tree Tier 9. I think the guns are much more consistent, and the armor is a lot better. You don't have to give nearly as much broadside, 30-degree forward, 30-degree rear firing angles here. Again, as long as you don't show broadside, it's a very, very tanky ship. I still think you probably would rather go for a Laria if you don't have any of these ships. Marco Polo available for coal normally, so you're not missing out on too much here. But Verdi has actually rotated out this last update, and it's only available for doubloons usually, so can be quite expensive. Here's an opportunity to get it for grinding in-game resources. This ship takes pretty much the same hull, pretty much the same guns, and makes it into a secondary brawler. There's a lot of these at tier 9. There's another one within this same event. We'll take a look at that one soon. The Navran is available there, and I think it's probably a little bit better. The problem here with Verdi is that SAP secondaries don't have improved accuracy here. So you're not actually going to get that much damage out of them, or at least that's how I've found it to be. You got to give a lot of broadside to get most of these secondaries online too, like 40 degrees, which, as already mentioned, this hull takes a lot of damage when you give it that much broadside. Cuts your DPM to only 64% of your maximum when you're at a 30-degree angle, which is certainly a downside. The 406s here still can hit hard when you hit. Only 1.7 Sigma here, so it's a bit of a dice roll as to whether you actually are going to land these shells. But at least a 31-second reload feels not too bad. And again, the armor here is quite solid. This ship crucially gets the smoke screen. It's not going to be too useful in this one. We kind of get ourselves pinned down. We made it to the island already. We're going to be caught in a crossfire with this one, unfortunately. So it's not too much of use in this battle, but I do really value having these smoke screens. You do have a nice 900-meter radius on this smoke. It's like the Sicilia smoke at tier 10. You also get a 180-second cooldown. It's a little bit long to get back to that smoke, but it lasts 60 seconds. Full minute of uptime is pretty fun here. These secondaries, by the way, are the 90 mil secondaries, so it's not like Sicilia secondaries where you get the 127s like their American turrets or something like that. Here, it's just the 90 mils like you would see on like a Napoli, for example. And because of that, they only pen 26 millimeters of armor. We have some 42 mil pen on the 152s, but those fire a lot less often. Our main DPS is the 90 mils, so they're not going to be doing too much damage into a lot of battleships. You're going to need to hit superstructures in that case. But into DDs, if they hit, again, base accuracy on these secondaries is just normal battleship accuracy. There's no improvement here. It's not the slight improvement to the mainline German battleships like Bismarck all the way to Preußen. Not even that improvement. Certainly not anywhere close to Schlieffen, Ohio accuracy here. So you got to be on target for quite a while, and you need to be shooting at large ships with these secondaries. At least they fire fast, I guess. Only 10.5 kilometers of range, though, limits the usefulness here, too. I think there's just better secondary battleships at tier 9. Plenty. Obviously, the big one is Valparaiso. Not available right now currently, but that ship is an absolute menace. But even something like Navran, you're getting longer range, better accuracy secondaries, the ability to light fires. Also lacks some pen, but you get fires on top of that too. And HE does not care about angling either. So sometimes these secondaries, people angle, will shatter or bounce. Not likely, of course. SAP has crazy pen angles, but it can happen. It is a notable downside, not getting fires out of these secondaries, lacking the range and lacking the dispersion overall. This ship it's quite tanky when angled though, so you can stay in it for a while. That is going to be your main advantage here, as well as having 406s that are a little bit inaccurate can give you good damage. We got some crazy citadels on the Suzuma earlier. Now it's decided to act like a little bit of a shotgun. That's to be expected out of this ship. No special healing here either. but having the smoke screens as your defense when you do get into trouble is really, really nice to have. I don't find myself playing this ship really all that often. I think this is just down to the inconsistencies overall of the ship. It's a bit like Sicilia at tier 10, where build for the secondaries probably, because you just have better options if you want to run main gun build. Here the example would be Marco Polo, just run the main guns there, it'd be better. Tier 10 Sicilia, just run like Mod Colombo, right? If you're going to go secondaries though, which is probably what these ships focus on compared to their other Italian counterparts there, the secondaries don't feel that consistent just because they don't have the accuracy, and it doesn't feel like you're getting a lot of... You can get a lot of damage out of them. For some reason, it just doesn't feel like I'm getting the consistency out of the secondaries either when I'm running them. Whether that be down to their dispersion, the range, the way the sap functions, and just how long it takes to gain accuracy. You're just missing so many shells compared to so many of the other battleships, secondary battleships that we have these days. You know, something like the Libertad line at Los Andes all the way down to Iparanga. You're getting huge pen like you would. That's one of the benefits of SAP, right? Is it pens more than HE for its caliber. Those ships are getting, you know, 234 millimeter main guns. Even the 152s on the Iparanga do massive damage and light fires, and they're so much more accurate. And they retain a lot of the advantages that these Italian battleships have, is that when they're angled, they really don't take that much damage. They often have improved heals as well. But you don't have the smoke to play with. Smoke plus secondaries, I will admit, is very, very fun when you get the opportunity for it. Something like ranked modes, brawls, anything like that, smaller game modes, temporary game modes, that kind of thing. The ship is very fun. Much like a lot of these older secondary battleships, they just need to be played in some of these alternate game modes or PvE to really find the enjoyment. It's really hard to make secondary battleships work in tier 10 these days, or in randoms these days. This is tier 9, but you often get the up tiers. So you really need to play the newer secondary battleship releases in randoms, because they're just a lot more powerful. Let's be honest, Libertad line is just more powerful, easier to use, and actually brawl in randoms. It's hard to make that work with some of these older designs. But that doesn't mean these are necessarily bad to get if you're very interested in these two Italian battleships, Marco Polo and Giuseppe Verdi. Could be worth going for still. The ability to grind these out completely for free with these combat missions is still very interesting. Yeah, they're copy-paste, but you didn't have access to these before, you don't want to spend doubloons on Verdi, could be an option for you. For me, these aren't the most interesting ships to me in this event. These are certainly not the ones that I would be going for, but that is just for me and my playstyle. I have access to these, I have played them before, I haven't found them particularly interesting at tier 9. The builds that I was running, of course, we're going for secondaries with the Pilus Posterior here. This is a secondary battleship in my opinion. You really do need to be running the secondaries. Otherwise, play almost anything else if you want to go main guns. 1.7 Sigma, 406s here. It does not feel good to run as a main gun build. I was running Damage Control Party Mod 1, if you're wondering. It's kind of why our turrets were breaking as well. A bit softer turrets here, at least in the armor. But at least they don't get permanently knocked out, so we can kind of afford to do that. Adds to our tankiness here just a little bit. Here's the armor layout. This is why we can survive so long. Look at how tiny this superstructure is. We're talking about this a lot with Soviet battleships, but that's a pretty small superstructure. 55 mil deck armor, 70 upper belt, 30-degree firing angles. This is why these ships live for so long when you keep them angled. Broadside, this suddenly arms all the AP in the game. So you're guaranteed to eat full pens up here. And then, of course, you also have to worry about this Citadel. It is technically a turtleback. You can see the angle here, but it's only a 25 millimeter turtleback, which means all battleship shells are overmatching this. So it doesn't really have that much of an effect. So slightly above water Citadel means you can definitely get punished for going broadside. Even if you don't take Citadels, though, it's basically guaranteed massive full pens here. I've always felt the Verdi and Marco Polo sit a little bit high out of the water. It just feels like Roma sits a little bit lower in the water, and because of that, does not quite eat as much damage. Maybe that's cope, maybe that isn't, I don't know, but it sure feels like Roma is a little bit tankier, because, I mean, it's definitely higher above water. It definitely is. Feels weird, but keep it angled, and you will mitigate so much of that damage. Plius prior here, I was using Cincinnati, but I was using a much more reasonable build on it. I was not going for secondaries here. I think I was going for Furious, as well as getting a extra heal with this one. Still want to take things like fire prevention and concealment as well, so just swap this one for Furious, swap this one for the 5th heal, and call it a day is pretty much how I went with it. Oh, no. You definitely want Gunfeeder. Gunfeeder on this one as well. 30-second reload. You want to be able to swap to that sap faster. Notably, this does not have the change to the tech tree battleships where built in, without even using Gunfeeder, they can swap faster. Notice our swap time here is 30 seconds. If we go over to the Colombo here without a commander, no commander, it's 24.3 seconds base before we even take Gunfeeder or improved Gunfeeder like we would on Sansonetti. So Marco Polo notably does not have that. The Plius prior does not have that one either. This one being 1.9 Sigma battleship dispersion. It's a bit like Iowa. I mean, you don't have American accuracy upgrade. That's why Iowa feels a little bit more consistent still. But it's close. It's only a few percent off, and you get access to SAP with nearly a 30-second reload running reload mod. Yeah, we're lacking in range a little bit here as well. Only 19 kilometers of range, but you can always pop that spotter plane if you need to. And 13.2 detect feels quite good as well. We retain that good armor scheme as well. They're not bad ships, okay? They're not bad ships. I just think that there are better options in this Lunar New Year's event. Personally, of course, Laria, Schlief, and Petro are the main ones to go for. But we still wanted to cover these ones because I think some people will be interested. And I have not looked at Marco Polo or Verdi in quite some time. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.